Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.
Hey everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Elmo's World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. Welcome to Elmo's World Podcast. This is Elmo Dor Jr., your host, and I'm with my friend Chris Mallard. Bro, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. My name is Chris Mallard. I'm the host of the Daily Atheist Morning Show and the Chris Mallard Show. The Daily Atheist Morning Show is a daily, Monday through Friday show about atheists and atheism to support atheists. And then the Chris Mallard Show is a left-wing political nutbaggery kind of show that I do on the YouTubes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, man. So you there's an atheist in the title there. So why you're an atheist, I guess?
Well, it's kind of complicated. You know, I was raised a Christian, believed all those things sort of very loosely. I think I tell people the reason why I'm an atheist is because I wasn't properly indoctrinated whenever I was a kid. Yeah. Whenever I was growing up, my mom wasn't really into church. My dad wasn't really into church. They both believed, but not a lot. So yeah. I don't know. It just wasn't very hard. And then I had this friend who he became an atheist. And what I think he meant was that he was just mad at God. Mm-hmm. I've seen other Christians do this. They're mad at God. So they claim to be an atheist and they're turning away from God and because their life is going bad. And God's supposed to go, oh no, don't turn away from me. Let me make your life better again and start doing good things for them. And then when their life turns around, they're like, oh, well, I was an atheist, but then God saved me and made things better for me. And that's kind of what happened. So he was at that point.
Yeah.
And I was one of those Christians who came and I talked him back into being a Christian.
Oh, interesting.
And then I moved away. I know, right? It's crazy. I moved away back to Texas and I became an atheist. I came back a few years later and my friend was downtown Albuquerque holding signs saying, talk to me about Jesus, because he was so into religion.
Damn. It's the twist
I know. So
turns,
at that point,
I
I
guess.
just...
Yeah.
What's that?
The twists and turns of your story is interesting.
Of course, yeah.
Like, what if you never went to Texas? You could be that guy too, like holding the banner that accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
That's true. I don't know. I think my course was set. I was.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I was never a good Christian, I guess, to begin with. He was a better Christian anyway than I was. But, so once I came here and I saw how far off the deep end he had gone, I just came up here to visit and he couldn't hang out because he was downtown holding the sign. I'm like, oh man. So I went back to Texas, for after that weekend. And it was at that point that I decided I was going to kind of become an out and out outspoken atheist and start, dedicate myself to it.
Okay, so there's a point there when you mentioned that you became an atheist when you went to Texas. So what happened there? Can you elaborate the narrative of how you came came to be an atheist at that point? Like, what was your thought process, the experience?
Well, again, first of all, I should mention that whenever I say I went back to Texas that time, the first time after I did that with him, that was for a span of years. I was down there for a decade or more. And while I was down there, it's just I slipped away. I started seeing things and reading things and got on the internet. I remember I watched an interview with Chris Hitchens after Jerry Falwell had passed away, and Chris Hitchens was on CNN, and they kept promoting it, notable atheist is going to be on this show. And I'm like, an atheist? Really? He's going to talk about, because Falwell had just passed away. And so Chris Hitchens comes on there, and he's like, he said, so I think it was, I can't remember his name right now, white-headed guy, Anderson Cooper, asked him, what do you not like about, Jerry Falwell? And Chris Hitchens said, well, if you were to give him an enema, every bit of him that was left would fit into a matchbox or something, if you know what I mean, because he's so full of crap. Said that people like Jerry Falwell should be selling pencils from a cup because they're crazy. And I was like, wow, this guy's speaking my language. So yeah, those kind of things were my experience. Then I read a couple other books. Let's see, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris. Of course, watched lots of YouTube videos of Chris Hitchens and stuff like that. And then decided I wanted to create my own voice.
Yeah, the Four Horsemen guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So well, three of them. I never heard of Daniel Dennett. Never heard nothing about who. I don't even know who he is, but I've heard of Sam. The other three, absolutely.
Matt D. Right? Sam Harris, Christopher
Matt D.
Hitchens.
is not a Four Horseman.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, but
he'd like to think he is.
But
no offense to Matt, we would all like to think we are. Matt Dillahunty?
Yeah. Was he influential?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so
I don't know. I don't even know who he is. I've seen a couple of his videos. I like what I see. I'm not knocking Matt Dillahunty. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying. Let me make 2 points real quick, if you don't mind, Elmo. First of all, whenever I say he's not, I pointed out, he's not one of the Four Horsemen. That's only because in the atheist community, it seems like everybody and their dog wants to be one of the Four Horsemen, and he's just not. That's all. It's no offense to him. It's just he's not. He's got his own little groove. He's got his own name that he's built up that is separate from them. That's all I meant. Just like me. I tell you, there's a big hunk of me, Elmo, that would sure love to be one of the Four Horsemen, but I never will be. They already are.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
So I got to build my own name. That's all I meant. I didn't mean to insult Matt, but as far as Matt Dillahunty, I don't really know that much about him. I've seen I haven't even watched his show a couple of times. I know it's on. I've glimpsed it a couple of times. I know he talks to people on the phone, Christians, and he can sometimes be kind of gruff with them, and it's fun to watch.
Okay. So,
but that's it. Yeah.
So it's what about the? I guess it's a slow process, right? Like you were transitioning from being a sort of a soft kind of Christian, not that really into it, but because you were just born into it, and you never got those really high spiritual stuff, the experiences that a lot of Christians have. Okay. So in terms of what were your thought processes, right? Because when you were still a Christian, of course you accepted that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and all of this, and that God created the universe. Were you a young creationist at that time? Or like, what were your beliefs before?
I was not a young earth creationist. I didn't even know those kind of people existed. I believed in science and the Bible somehow. I didn't really, I remember as a kid questioning, dinosaurs. And in the beginning, it doesn't make blah, 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 blah. But I never really put a lot of mental effort into it. It's cognitive dissonance. You just go, really? And you go on. That was kind of me. Then I met the young earth creationists. I thought they were kind of a little cray-cray. Myself is... No, I'm not one of those. Never was.
Okay. So, you were believing in the Bible, right? And you also believed that God exists and Jesus Christ, the basics, right? The fundamentals of being a Christian.
But of course.
So how did you transition? How were you convinced slowly that these stuff weren't what they presented themselves to be in reality? How did you slowly accept that God might not exist, and then God doesn't exist? That the Bible is actually just a history book that has false claims. So how did you start, or what was the process there?
Man, I can't really say there was a process. And I also got to tell you, this was 15 years ago, and I've smoked a hell of a lot of weed between now and then. So if you're really going to sit here and expect me to give you detail about how I step by step through the process, I can't. Okay. I can tell you exactly what I've told you. I watched some Christopher Hitchens. Okay. I watched some videos. I read the Bible. That'll go a long way. But beyond that, brother, that's all you're going to get.
Okay. So maybe
you could rephrase the question again.
Yeah. Okay. But maybe I guess at one point while you were watching YouTube, you decided
there was no one point, dude. There was no one point. There was no one point that I just went, oh my God, I'm an atheist. It just never happened, dude. It was subtle. If you're looking for that, just make that up, because I can't give it to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So over the course, eventually,
I actually did tell you at what point I decided atheism is going to be my cause. Yeah. This is going to be when I told you when that was. When I saw my Christian friend go, I was already an atheist at that point. Mm-hmm. I came up to visit him and I saw how crazy he had gone as a Christian. And I left driving back home and I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn my way to atheism. I need to keep people from being crazy like that.
Okay.
That's all I can give you.
Okay, let's talk about your show, right? Like, so, you're an atheist then, right? And you decided that you want to be someone that has this show daily, right? It's daily thing. So what about it? Like, what was the story there?
Let me just to avoid some confusion, there was probably 15 years between the point of whenever I left, whenever I decided I was going to become an atheist advocate, and when I created the Atheist Show. I've only been doing the Daily Atheist Morning Show about a year. And I've been an atheist, and I wrote a book back in 2013 and all this stuff. But the Daily Atheist Morning Show is only about a year old. It's fun. It's getting fun. It's fun.
Okay.
But I tell you, really, to be clear though, Elmo, what I am is I'm not really so much against religion or religious people so much. Mm-hmm. I'm against the harms done by religion and done by religious people. Sometimes religion, the Pope comes out and tells the people of Africa, don't use condoms whenever there's an AIDS epidemic. That's harm done by religion. I'm against that. Then you have believers like people who live in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Maine. There's these churches up there. And for some reason, they feel like they don't need to take their kids to the doctor. They just pray over them and watch them die of easily curable things like diabetes, or, they could just give them medicine, but they won't. They let them die while they pray over them or anoint them with oils or something like that. That is harm done by religious believers. That's what I'm against. I'm not against spirituality and people believing in faith or none of that. That's a whole different ball of wax. I'm just thought I'd let you know what I'm against.
Okay.
My cause.
Okay. I would love to dive into your cause in after a few questions, but I'd like to ask you your perspective on the reality, right? So does the universe possibly could have a God or not? Like, what do you think?
Well, Elmo, I appreciate the question. That's, if I may, yes and no. Okay.
Interesting.
Yes, I could have to say it could be possible that there is a creature of a superior intelligence that created the universe. I could not say that there's not such a thing. Wow. What I can say is that I do not believe that the creature described in the Bible is the same creature. Okay. If there were such a creature.
Okay, see, I guess
that creature in the Bible is just vile and ridiculous.
You could be a deist, but not a Christian. Right. Just not a Christian.
Well, there's no religion on the planet that would do it. I'm an agnostic atheist. I believe, I can't really say there is no God. I just can't say I believe, I can't prove it, right? Mm-hmm. That there is no God, but I really do believe that any God that has been put forth to me by these religious people, I don't believe that's a God. That they're monsters, most of them.
Okay. So
if that makes sense,
you might believe in like Cthulhu or something that are like an alien that created this hologram universe, but not the Trinitarian God, not the Islamic God, not any Hindu God, or any God that is in religions in this earth right now.
That's a really good example. I think the one you had hitting the nail on the head would be more like this. Not Cthulhu. Cthulhu's just a, he's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
But like if you take science fiction where they create a universe in a computer and there's a guy sitting out and he can pause that computer and he can make it go forward and he can go backwards and he can come in and look at my cup and say, oh, I want that to be a green cup and change the color. Because that's what we can do in games, right? You go into The Sims and you change their colors and essentially you're their God. Why that couldn't be the case here, I don't know. I don't see why that could not be the case in our universe. Now, the notion, though, when you have to think about that, I'm sitting there paying attention to that one cup. There are trillions of cups, billions of people. Is that how could I possibly pay attention? An omniscient God who could watch all that all the time? And then to have that God care what I do with my penis, or what I do on Saturday, or, it's really petty whenever you compare the God written in these holy scriptures to the idea of an all creator God who can see everything and know everything like a computer engineer in a program,
Okay.
It's a far stretch.
Let's talk about Christianity, right? I guess you're more into that. So when it comes to, let's say, the Bible, right? How would you, for example, if I'm a Christian, right? And Chris, this is the Bible. It's the most authentic manuscript collection that we have of the past, and there are so many copies and transcriptions, right? So how would you tell them that, oh no, the Bible is just wrong, bro? Like, it doesn't make sense. How would you do that?
Well, that can be a fun experience for everybody, depending on your views, really. But one of the things is that the Bible is, if we're talking to a Christian specifically who often ignores the Old Testament, let's pretend that's who we're talking to. So let's just set aside the Old Testament and look at the New Testament. And the New Testament is absolutely conflicting and crazy when you go look at the history of it, who wrote when. None of the people who wrote the quote unquote wrote the books of the Bible were even alive when they were written. Mm-hmm. John didn't write a single book of the Bible. None of them did. People 100 years later or 70 years later, the earliest books were written. All right, so here's the deal. Somebody who, if it really happened, if Jesus was really there, here's the thing to think about. So that person saw it. The earliest books were 70 years. Back then, people didn't normally live 70 years. It was like 2 generations. So somebody had to have been there, seen it, told it maybe to their children, or a younger person who survived long, who also told it to another person who was old enough and educated enough to write it down. It's like a generation and a half of time between when it actually happened and when it was written down. So we trust that. That's the word of God right there. And they conflict. When you go look at one story, I don't remember specifically which one, but I'm going to use names. If you're going to fact check me on it, just know that I'm using names and correct me later. Okay. Let's say the book of Mark. The book of Mark says Jesus is born and they go south to Egypt and they do the thing down there and they chase horses or whatever. The book of Matthew says they go north. They don't go south. They go north to Canaan, and there Jesus starts, driving Mustangs and, buys a Camaro dealership. When you go read them, they tell 2 different stories of what happened to Jesus after he was born. Why? Mm-hmm. Well, if they're the perfect word of God. And, actually there's a place on the web you can go looking for. It's called BibViz. It used to have a website. I'm not sure, but you can just search Bible, contradictions. Just person listening to this in the future, search Bible contradictions, and you will go see there's a horrible amount of contradictions in the New Testament, especially. It's just, how many women saw Jesus, or who saw Jesus rise from the grave? Was it a Roman soldier? According to one of the stories, it was one of the Gospels, one of the unerrant books written in the name of Jesus how could that book be wrong? So it says that it was a Roman soldier who saw it. Another one of those books, same legitimate, oh my goodness, this was the book of Mark or whatever. It says that two women, Mary Magdalene and Mary somebody else, they were the ones who saw Jesus rise from the tomb. And yet another book, one of the other books, says it was only Mary who saw, and not. So which one's right? Which one's wrong? Well, can they all be right? No. Can they all be wrong? Yes.
Okay, so
they could all just be a story made up.
Yeah. Okay, so you basically you focus on the New Testament and the reliability of the
that's
text.
Christianity.
Yeah, in Christianity, and there's inconsistencies. There are contradictions, right? So that's why the Bible is wrong or is unreliable.
Well, there are more. If you're going to ask about why you would, it's not now. If you're talking about just the Bible, but then again, also there are examples we can set. Mm-hmm. Jesus did things. Jesus said, if you believe in me and if you believe in God and you believe in me, you can do the same miracles I do. Can you do the same miracles Jesus did? Can you rub mud and spit into a guy's eye and make him not blind? Probably not. I would guess not. There's another part in the Bible, and I'm pretty sure it was Jesus said, if 3 or more of you gather together in my name and ask for something, it will be done. If that were true, and you're welcome to go look up the scripture, I don't really have it in front of me right now, but if that were true, how come Christians can't cure all diseases? How come you just don't get 3 Christians going through the hospital and praying? So which leads us to so that's the second example. There are examples where Jesus says, if you do these things, you will have power. If you do those things, you don't have no power, oddly enough. Or else, the example I said, Christians would be go around healing everything. No Christian high school football team would ever lose, would they?
Yeah, but I guess there are a lot of apologetics there, and you're looking at it from your interpretation, but I guess there we have to be careful on
that's
how
my job.
Interpret it, right? So okay,
well, how would you interpret it?
Well, I'm not an apologist yet, but okay, I'll grant you that if that is the case, right? If that's what the proper interpretation is, what you just said, then that could be like a way to test whether or not Christians did have like powers and miracles, right? But we can't know for certain. Right, we can't. Right. It's in the past, so we can't know if the apostles actually did do miracles and stuff. I guess we're just relying on the text.
I understand that. Yeah, I get what you're saying there, but that's not what we're saying. What we're saying, I guess you could interpret it that way. But what we're talking about is whenever Jesus says, if you mix red and blue, you will get purple. Mm-hmm. That you should be able to go mix red because that's a magic power I have. So you go mix red and blue and you get purple, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus says, and I'm looking at the scripture now, Matthew 18:20, he says, for where 2 or 3 gather together as my followers, I am there among them. And then it goes on. I got to find it though, brother. I'm doing this on the set.
Yeah, I guess that what that verse meant was the assembly, right? The church, right? The worship.
No. Wait. See, now you're going to start equivocating for the text. I like that.
No.
I don't actually see it says church in there though, does it? It literally says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them." It doesn't say for the church. Jesus was quite capable of his own speech. He didn't need interpretation. He was quite capable of meaning for the church specifically. Now, did he mean for the prophets or for the apostles? Just for the apostles? Perhaps he should have said that, because oftentimes what will happen is you'll get a Christian who will come in here and they'll pick out something just like this. And they'll go, oh, well, this is where Jesus, now what's happening is Jesus is saying something to somebody very specific at a very specific time. And they go, oh, well, that's what Jesus says. So that means that's what we're supposed to do now. Mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. They do it all the time.
Okay, so I'm looking at all your arguments against the Bible, right? Like, so it's the inconsistencies and unreliability of the text. That Christians aren't able to do miracles right now, therefore, they're not real Christians because Jesus said that if you're a Christian, you can make miracles, right? So that's one of your arguments too.
Well, actually, that's one. No, my argument is that Jesus Christ has no power. He was never real.
Yeah,
and because just it doesn't matter how good a Christian you are. You could be the best Christian in the entire universe. Just because of that doesn't mean you're going to get your way. Just because you're a Christian.
Okay. What else are your arguments against the Bible, or was that already it?
Are we talking about, well, we could go on.
Yeah,
do you want to talk about the content of the Bible? Or are we talking about, see, we haven't even talked about the Old Testament.
Let's talk about the Old Testament.
So who is the father of the religions?
Abraham, I guess.
Abraham, he's a good guy. Abraham's a pretty good guy.
Well, he is a liar.
He's a liar, huh? Odd. He's a liar. You know, he's also from a family of incestuous people who had a tendency to marry their own relatives. Did you know that?
Yeah, I guess he's Sarah is either his niece or his half sister.
Well, his half sister, but also his brother married his own niece.
Yeah.
So you can kind of figure that from this family of people, they probably had a lot of inbreeding. Abraham was probably the descendant of inbreeds. A mother married, a sister married to her own brother, or a sister married to her own uncle, or a niece married to her own uncle. Why not? Why not? I mean, and why would they tell us that in the Bible? Why do they even have to point that out? And, you know, of course, you know that he goes around and he literally gives away his wife as his sister, as a sexual object to another man to gain wealth.
Okay, so you're saying that Abraham is immoral, therefore the Old Testament is messed up, right? Like,
well, that's one example. Yes, there are many examples, but yeah, yes.
Okay, what else?
Okay. Well, I mean, we could go on through the rest of the Bible.
I guess
I have a video series on the YouTube called The Evil God Monster of Abraham, and I go through it chapter by chapter, explaining this is why this monster is evil. And so far we're up to chapter 13, and we just covered the Abraham and Lot thing. Well, you know, Abraham, then you go on to Lot. Lot's the hero of the story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's a good Lot. He's so goodly, in fact, that the angels are sent down to Sodom and personally escort him out. Is that not how good he is? That's how good he is and holy with God. And yet he goes right to a cave and has sex with his daughters and has children with his daughters.
Yeah.
Huh. Now, of course, according to the story written by Lot, the daughters got him drunk, then had sex with him. When he was so drunk, he didn't know what was going on. And then they both had children. But let me tell you something about that, really. First of all, Lot was an elderly man, according to the story.
Yeah.
Very old. He was so old, he couldn't make it to the place. He told the angels he couldn't make it to the place. He had to go to the mountains. He was old. Have you ever been drunk and tried to have sex? Have you ever been so drunk you couldn't remember having sex or knew who you were having sex with? Did your equipment work at that time? It usually doesn't work by the time. All right, so you put two things together. Extreme age, the dinky usually doesn't work at extreme age. And then you talk about adding lots of alcohol, so much alcohol that he couldn't get it up, or that he shouldn't have been able to do anything with it. And then, he was able to do the thing and get his daughter pregnant.
Interesting.
And then the next night they did it again. And the other daughter got pregnant. Now, let me tell you something about the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, they don't never talk about heaven. The rewards in the Old Testament for being a good, godly man is a long life, and men, children who bear your name and who go on to be the kings and fathers of nations. That's the whole big thing about the Old Testament. There is no heaven in the Old Testament. It's just you get to have a long life and you will bear children. That's what all of Abraham's whole goal was, to have children, right? To who will go on to bear his name. So that's how you know that God has blessed your actions, is that he gives you children who are fathers of nations. So also in the previous chapters of Genesis, God tells Sarah because she can't get pregnant, right? That essentially nobody gets pregnant without his will. It's his blessing that people get pregnant. So now let's move forward back to Lot and Lot's daughters. So the God of the Bible must have blessed the incestual sex between Abraham and his daughters for them, to get pregnant. So they got pregnant. Then despite having sex with he got to live a long life, and his children from his daughters, both of them were male children, which is also a blessing from God. And both of them went on to be the fathers of nations. So this is all blessings from God for a man who just got finished having sex with his daughters, young unmarried daughters. So what does that tell you about God? Where's God stand morally? These are the examples set by the heroes of the Bible. These are atrocious examples. And if somebody's going to base their...
But you're also gonna say that like the Old Testament is like full of these kinds of stories, right? That demonstrate
never ends. Yeah, one after another.
Okay, then the Christian. Okay, so if you eliminate like the Bible with these arguments, right? Then everything falls apart, right? Like their theology, their philosophy, whatnot. As long as if your arguments stand here, okay. But what about, let's say, Islam? What would you say that in Islam, like the prophets are good people, right? They're very morally outstanding individuals. How would you use these arguments against Islam?
Okay, well, all right. Well, first of all, Islam is based on the Abrahamic religion. So it's based on Abraham. Abraham is the father of Islam, just like he's the father of Christianity, just like he's the father. All right, so
but they claim that Abraham is a good guy. He didn't lie, didn't marry his incestually.
Right. Now, wait, okay. Yeah, but that's all books written hundreds of years later. In the Quran, whenever they're actually contradicting the literal book of Abraham, actual book that describes his life.
But look at this, right? Like nobody actually wrote about like what really happened in Abraham's life. Every writing in the Old Testament.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Why?
The whole Genesis, they talked about Abraham went from here. He took his Sarai. But they literally described his entire life.
I know, but
and they said that, and Abraham, listen, wait. Abraham even told a Pharaoh king, the words written out of his mouth were the reason why I let you sleep with my sister was because.
What I said, bro. What I said was that. Like for example, the Pentateuch, right? The Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. Yeah, it's written by Moses. So no one who was alive then actually wrote what actually literally happened there. It's all oral tradition, right?
I told you, get you. So like 1600 years later, Muhammad comes along and writes the Quran. Why would his words why would they even consider what's in the Quran? That Abraham was a good man. How would they even possibly know that?
Okay,
how would they know it?
Look at this. Like for example,
where would they get that evidence?
For example,
their prophets are good.
Right? You said that God could exist, like something like a deity, right? But if the Quran is God's literal word, that could be a possibility, right? It could be the hologram dude sent the Quran.
No.
Why?
No, not because the Quran is no better than the Bible or the Christian or the Pentateuch. It's no better than any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of contradictions. You really should probably look more into the Quran, I think. Whenever there's parts in the Quran where Muhammad said that Jews were okay, but there's lots of parts where in the Quran where Muhammad said you're supposed to behead anybody who's not a Muslim. Did you know that Muhammad, you did know he married a 6-year-old, right?
Yeah.
You did know that he had sex with her when he was 9, right? She was 9. Have you ever read the hadiths where it talks about how she used to, between the age of 6 and 9, she used to scrape the sperm from the inside of his cloak? Maybe you should go read that stuff and find out more about how good these prophets were. Did you know that Muhammad personally, this man himself, not a secondling, not a captain in his army, this man himself personally beheaded between 600 and 900 captive, unarmed people.
But
Did you know that?
It's war. Like it is.
No. Did you hear my words? Captive, unarmed people. It's a war. You don't have to kill captive, unarmed people. Where are the stories of all the other people around there murdering captive, unarmed people? Do you hear stories about that?
Well,
he's supposed to be a prophet from God,
or make them slaves.
A messenger of mercy. How come he couldn't convert their hearts?
Mm-hmm.
And why is he any better than Jesus? I mean, this is all based on the story of Jesus and the Old Testament anyway. Originally, he worshiped the moon gods. He was part of, I don't remember which specific cult that worshiped moon goddesses. I mean, this guy was just a warlord. He talks about cutting off people's heads, cutting off their fingers. There's no mercy in there. Now they often say mercy. There's often in times you'll find in the Quran the word mercy or peace is in there so often that surely that must be a holy text. No, it's in there so often because they're kissing his ass all the time and they say peace be upon him, mercy be upon him every time anybody says his name, and therefore that's why there are peace be. But that's why the peace in there. But there's really blood and murder. I mean, he took over Mecca. And then went down and slayed those people in Medina who didn't. I mean, can you go now in Saudi Arabia as an atheist? Can you go to the Kaaba right now? Could an atheist go wearing a shirt saying, I'm an atheist?
Well, of course
right
not.
now.
It's disrespectful, I guess.
Well, no. It's not disrespectful. Why would it be disrespectful for me to wear a shirt just saying I'm an atheist? That's a different religion. That's all. That's not disrespectful. I didn't say my shirt said screw Allah. I didn't say it said anything about not being. I said being an atheist. And you know what would happen? They would kill me if I was found at the Cabal and they knew I was an atheist. Why is that?
Well, I guess that there are a lot of cultural and political stuff there, but okay.
Well, he's a messenger of peace, right?
But I guess
come on, where's all that peace?
I guess your argument is that if Muhammad is this immoral guy, therefore Islam is it's all fake, it's all wrong, it's all messed up, right? It's false because if
why would it be anything but? When you've got a person proven to be immoral and then that person says something is true, why would you even remotely believe that person? Let me ask you, do you think Donald Trump lies or do you think he tells the truth? Which do you think? I'm asking you a question.
Well, I don't
Your
know.
opinion.
I don't know whether or not he lies or he tells the truth, but I guess he's human, so he could lie, right?
I guess so.
Okay.
I was going to go, one of the things is you just can't trust people that you know are liars.
Okay.
That's kind of the deal. You can't trust them if they're known liars, if they're known bad people. Well, we know he's a bad person based on his own stories that he told by his own book. And then you go read the hadiths that were written by people who were around him at the time. And what do you get? It's not a rosy picture. There's a lot of murder, death, kill. A lot of murder, death, kill. I believe he actually married and he had many wives. One of them he captured or he knew. I don't think he captured her husband. He took over a town militarily and there was a man in the town. He wanted that man's wife. So he killed that man to take his wife. And that's a moral person. That's a good person there. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. Okay. So I guess that if Muhammad is this immoral guy, therefore Islam is false, right? Basically, well, that's what you're saying.
Basically, I guess if that's how you'd like to see it, yeah.
Okay. Then, other than that, like, I don't want to dive into the other religions. I guess these are the two biggest ones. But what about, let's say, just why do you think, right, that there couldn't be like a classical God out there, even if it's not from Christian or a Muslim, but just a perfect being with all these attributes of omnibenevolence, omnipotence, immutability? Why do you think that he couldn't exist outside of Christianity and Islam?
I never said that. I never said that I didn't believe that couldn't exist. Matter of fact, that's what started this conversation. I believe was we were talking. We were talking about. I was open to that very notion, yet nothing has been proven to me. Especially when you use terms like omnibenevolent. You use terms like omnibenevolent, and you have a Old Testament God. Now, listen, the God of the Old Testament is the God of Muhammad, is the God of Jesus Christ. It's the same God. And he goes through and murders babies. He does all kinds of horrible things. He kills people left and right for trivial little things. One guy pulls out of he wants this guy to have children with this guy's own brother's wife. And the guy doesn't want to do it. So he pulls out before and he spins his seed on the ground, and God kills him for that. God kills him for all kinds of things. They were people being led by Moses, and they were complaining, Moses, why do I have to talk to you to talk to God? Why can't I just talk right to God? And God's like, Moses, these people are complaining. Separate yourself from them. And Moses did, and God rented them asunder and killed them. Rah, rah, rah. There's examples of the Lord telling his people to go through the temples.
About, let's say someone, for example, if let's say if I'm a theist, right? And I don't believe, let's say I don't believe in the Bible or in the Quran, but I just believe that there is this perfect God out there that outside of Christianity and Islam or any other religion, just me on my own, that's looking at the surroundings because there's a creation, there has to be this creator. So how could you tell me that I'm wrong? Because you're an atheist,
created this
right?
God? Who created this God?
Okay, so
no special pleading. No. You already said if there's a creation or if there's something created, it has to have a creator. Who created this God?
Okay, so this God could be necessarily existing, right? He is a necessary cause.
Well, so could the universe. If you're going to do that, then so could the universe. The universe necessarily existed without God. If you can apply that to a God, you can apply it to the universe. So why? I mean, there's no need that there has to be a creator just because there's a creation. That's a fallacy.
Okay, so it's either an eternal universe or an eternal God, right? But it's the same thing. It's both. Right, they're both possibilities.
I couldn't say otherwise. I couldn't say.
Okay,
your guess is as good as mine. But here's what I got to say about your perfect God. Okay, your perfect God. Let's clarify a couple things about your perfect God.
Okay,
your perfect God knows everything, right? Because he's perfect. Mm-hmm. He loves everybody. He's just. He's truthful. He's honest. He cares about you. He loves you, and he has the power to take care of you. Okay, have I described your perfect God?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you then. Where is that perfect God now?
Well, he's in.
Where is it with these little children that are starving to death? These little children that are having bone cancer and they're dying horrible deaths. These people who are trying to go from one land to another because there's these murderous savages gunning down people in the streets for guns. So they hop on a boat and they're trying to get across the ocean, maybe to Italy or something, and their boat sinks and they and their children drown in horrible deaths. Where's that God? Where's that perfect God all the time?
Mm-hmm. So
there's no proof of a perfect God.
So it's the problem of evil, I guess, right? Because there is this pain and suffering in this creation, therefore a perfect creator couldn't exist, right?
Well, based on that definition, is that perfect creator good? Does it let all these things happen? Does it just sit by and watch these things happen? If this perfect creator can help you find your car keys, then why can't this perfect creator stop children from being raped inside of churches? How come that even happened? There was no power there. There was no godly power there, or it never would have happened across the United States. By the hundreds of thousands, children were raped in the house of God by his own servants. And yet no magic glowing hand of God came out and stopped them. You would think if God had power and he was a perfect loving God, that would never have happened. And yet children raped by priests in his name.
Okay, so
there's no evidence of a perfect benevolent God.
Okay, so I guess this is a problem of evil, right? Basically, that's it. Okay, so
when you say things like the problem of evil, then it sounds like you're just placing my objections to your God as you're just saying, well, that's just subjective. What is evil?
I'm not saying it's subjective. I'm saying it's a good argument. right? It is a
Understood.
problem. Okay.
I got you.
So when it comes to because there in your worldview there is no God, there might be no God, or there might be at least there isn't a good God, possibly in your worldview.
Right. Well,
right?
okay. Well, what you've asked me, you were asking me what I thought was possible. Now let's talk about what I believe. I believe there is no God. There's no omniscient creature that's bigger than us. There's no operator that's sitting outside that computer running things back and forth. And my secondary belief was, even if there was such a creature, he has no care or concern about me. You, for example, Elmo, are a universe, right? You are the universe. You yourself are the universe. Do you know about every little bacteria that's inside of you? Bacteria is alive. Do you care which bacteria cheated on its wife with the other bacteria? Do you care which bacteria stole from other bacteria? No, you're completely unaware of them, right? So if there were a creature out there that created this universe in a box, it's unaware of what I do with my penis. It doesn't care what I wear. It doesn't care who I believe in. It's probably unaware of me completely.
Okay. So when it comes to that, let's talk about your ethics, right? Your moral code. I like to dive into this stuff. So how would you determine what is right and what is wrong? Like, what are your actions, or what your basis? I guess, like, is it maximal?
To be
well-being?
honest, well, you're right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Like, so how would you answer it?
Well, the way I get my morals is obviously the way any good person would. I get them from the Bible. I mean, I have learned that the Bible teaches us good things, Elmo. It teaches me that if I find somebody working on the Sabbath, I should stone them to death. Mm-hmm. It teaches me that if my child acts out against me, I should take them down in front of the city elders and I should murder them. Doesn't it? That's what the Bible teaches me. What does the Bible teach me about a man who worships another Lord? He should be destroyed. So where do people who follow the Bible get their morals, Elmo? Whenever you go read that book and the book tells you, I mean, Psalms 127, I think it is, could be 126, tells you. Now, Psalms is a story. It's actually, I think it's Jews or Hebrews at the time were singing about what to do because they were oppressed by somebody else. Somebody else had done harm to them, and now they want to go do harm back to these people. And in this song, it talks about how to smash the children by grabbing them by the ankles and dashing them against the rocks of your enemy. These are examples set in the Bible, Elmo. How does the Bible get... Now, we already talked about things like, is it okay to have sex with your daughter? Is it, Elmo?
No.
Why not? The Bible says it's okay. Lot had sex with both of his daughters, and he was rewarded by 2 sons, and both of those sons went on to be the fathers of nations. So why is it not good in the eyes of the Lord for you to have sex with your daughter? And nowhere does Jesus ever approach this subject. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a scripture where Jesus says not to have sex with your sister.
Earlier, right? But I want to know.
No. But now you're trying to pin me. Where do I get my morals from?
Yeah, no, I'm
right?
not.
That's where you want to know where I get.
I'm not trying to pin you, bro. This is just an interview.
No.
I just want to know. I just want to know, like, how do you determine what is good or bad? That's it. I'm not going to push you on that. I just want to know. Like, in your worldview right now, how do you determine what is right and what is wrong? That's all.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea. I couldn't really tell you.
So
I don't have a specific guide that tells me what's right and what's wrong.
Fine. Like, but it's not a guide. But right now, just because.
No, I said guide. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to misspeak. I said guide.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a specific guide. That's what I meant.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so you don't have a specific guide, then it's more of just like scenario to scenario, right? Like Okay. So
culturally, how I was raised, how the things that I was taught, I believe, then there's things that are, I don't know how to, that's kind of a complicated subject, but I do it. I am, I believe, a moral person, and I do it fine without God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't really tell you the mechanics of how. Now, that's the kind of where I was going when you first asked the question. The question I was asking was, how can a person who worships the gods of these holy books, because these gods are so vile, how could these people be good?
Mm-hmm. Well,
how could they be moral when they get their morals from this book that says it's okay to have sex with your daughter?
Mm-hmm. But I guess the question is like, okay, it's like, so you said.
No, I understood the question, and I answered the question.
Yeah, but okay. So my next question would be: so you judge your moral code is based on scenario to scenario, right? You discern a situation. So let's talk about, let's say, something like abortion. So how would you analyze it, from your atheist perspective? What should be done? What shouldn't be done? What is your thought process there?
Man, these are good questions, Elmo. They're good. On abortion, first of all, I'd like to say that when I speak on these things, I speak for myself. And not for all atheists, okay? Atheists, okay, we're good with that, right? Okay. So now my deal on abortion is that it should be left up to the doctors and to women. Most people the ones who are really against abortion have no idea what the people who are for abortion actually mean when we say we're for abortion. Most people are not, it's rare that a person wants to use abortion as a birth control. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. If people want to have abortions whenever the fetus is already got problems with it. It's going to harm the mother. Maybe it was a rape case. Maybe it was an incest case. Maybe the dad raped the daughter, and now the daughter, an 11-year-old girl, is pregnant, and she's going to have to bear that child. Should we let her abort the child? Now, in my opinion, there's a point somewhere between when the baby is the egg is fertilized and whenever it's born. There's some point in there, but whenever it becomes a baby, I don't really know when that point is, brother. And I would have to leave that up to the doctors. Now, the Bible tells us, depending on whom you ask, that there's no soul in the baby. It's not a person until the baby comes out of the womb, and then it's breathed. The soul of life is breathed into it. It is thus ensouled. But as far as an atheist, that would be crazy to think that you could abort a baby a week before it was to be born and you weren't hurting a real baby. So man, that's a tough call. I don't know. I think that should be left up to women. A man who has no dogs in that fight should not have the choice to make. Women and doctors.
Okay, so I guess it's more of a political discussion here, right? Like it's
maybe half, yeah.
Yeah, it's irrelevant to you because you're not in on it. You're not involved, right?
Right. If I were to vote, I would vote that way, to where women could do what they need to with their bodies based on blah blah blah. I would not vote with the pro-life people.
Okay, let's just talk for a moment, like politically, right? Like for example, I want to be in a society, right, where little children are protected by the state because they can't protect themselves, So, and my definition of little children would include fetuses. That's from my morality. That's how I view a person, right?
Okay.
So, in your world, if it's in your position, right? What kind of society would you want? Would you want little children to be protected by the state, or just let their parents decipher whether this child should live, this child shouldn't, depending on their circumstance? Like,
so, are you talking about the fetus? Are you talking about the zygote?
Maybe.
How okay, are you talking about as soon as?
Let's say, because I guess you put the person while the child becomes a person while the mother is pregnant, right? So let's say just a 2 weeks before the baby comes out, right? She's gonna get aborted. That child is gonna get aborted. Like, what decision would you want the state to do? Would you want the state?
See, we already have rules in place for that. The state does protect children from that, unless there's something very, very wrong. Very, very wrong. The state already takes care of that and protects that. We have rules against that already, because for that same reason. Now, there's a point at which a sperm touches an egg. Is that what you think a baby is? That's what a fetus is? Because that's not really a fetus. That's just a pile of goo. It doesn't have a heartbeat. It doesn't have a brain. Are you calling that a fetus?
Yeah, I guess it's a very subjective thing, right? Like
It really is. Now, here's the deal, though. You say protecting babies, but more about why can't it be about, listen, if you don't want an abortion, maybe you don't have one, and you're not worried about what other people are doing. Not you personally. You're obviously not having an abortion. You're not a woman. I'm talking, but you know what I mean. You know?
But I guess the question was like, what kind of state do I want? And you mentioned that the state protects these children that are about to come out from their mothers. I
said we already do.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And
I also said there's some point.
That's what you prefer, right?
Right. I said there's some point. No, I said we already do. That's not what I said. I did not say that was what we already, that's what I prefer. Okay. I said that's what we do. There are protections in there. You can only have an abortion for like the first 8 or something weeks into your pregnancy or something. I'm not really sure what it is. It varies from state to state, but you can't have an abortion 2 weeks. That's crazy. You can't have an abortion of a baby in your third trimester. Third trimester means within your 6th, 7th, or your 7th, 8th, and 9th month. Cause that's just ridiculous, dude. That's just murdering babies. Yeah. But to sit there and think that in there 2 weeks into it, you're murdering a baby, or a week after, if somebody takes the day after pill, that's not murdering babies, dude. That's killing goo that isn't even a person. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference somewhere between when the two people have sex and somewhere along the way. Now, I'm getting the impression that you're one of those people who you think it's a baby as soon as they have sex and the egg and is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but anyways, I guess
no,
we're closing in on the end, bro. Like we're almost an hour, and I want to ask you one last question before we end, because if that's okay, yeah. So my question is, right? Like, so we're talking about abortion, and
until you start losing on your point.
No, it's because
Carry
we're
on.
almost an hour. Okay.
Let's go with the next question. Yeah.
Okay, so like, let's say I was a failed abortion, right? A failed one. So I actually survived the abortion, and so my parents don't want me, and God doesn't exist from your worldview, right? And morality is subjective. So I want to ask you, like, what do you think would be the meaning of life? Just in general, like, why should I continue to live, right? There's no loving God. There is no meaning to life. I'm just an accident. So why do you think I should decide to live?
Well, do you like bowling? Do you like going to movies? Do you like having sex with girls? Do you like water skiing? There are a lot of things in life besides having parents that love you and believing in a God. You're going to believe, you're just apparently after the question you just asked me, this is going to blow your mind. You're not going to believe this, but this is true. There are actually orphans out there who are atheists. And yet they don't just kill themselves instantly. They don't have any parents. Their parents didn't want them. They don't believe in a God. And yet for some reason they're able to go on, because life can be awesome, man. There's flowers and puppy dogs and cats and movies and ice cream and Star Trek. Did I mention Star Trek? And there's Star Trek and there's girls and Star Trek. You know, there's just so many other things in life besides a God. And, you know, whenever you think about that God, all right, so now I have turned away. I've not really been a good person. I've not been no, it's not that I've been a bad person. Let's just say I've been a good person, right? I've been a good person. I don't beat people up. I don't rape people. I do good, right? But I don't believe in God. That's all. And now when I die, this perfectly benevolent, in fact, I think perfect God is going to burn me in hell forever and always, but just because I didn't, even though I was a good person. Does that sound like a perfect benevolent God? It really doesn't, does it? So when it comes to things like being an aborted fetus, a misaborted fetus, or whatever, you know, there are people out there who are born without one arm, without a leg. Some of them are born with all kinds of deformities, and then later on in life become atheists or never get indoctrinated with religion at all. And yet somehow they go on. Brother, I got to ask, I don't know how they do it. How do they do it? How do they do it? I don't know. With a God or without a God. You know, whenever these people are born with such severe difficulties, you know, forgive the expression, I am blessed, if you will, genetically. I'm 6'3". I'm a tall, good looking guy. I didn't have all kinds of problems, but I thought about that. How do those people who are born in unfortunate situations, how do they face every day you got to imagine there's many of them who do it for puppy dogs and boyfriends. They don't do it for God,
Yeah.
Some do, I'm sure. Some do. There's so many people, we can't say nobody does something. You know what I mean, brother? But I'm just saying, how do everybody get through? I can't imagine. There's a part in the Bible, near the end of the Bible, I think it's Revelations, where you actually get to see in heaven. And around the throne of heaven, there are these, I think they're angels, archangels or something. And then there's these other creatures around. And what the text says, and you're welcome to go look it up, it says that what they do for all eternity is say, holy, holy is the Lord. Ah, holy, holy is the Lord. Can you imagine how boring that would be? For all eternity. I mean, it might be cool for the first 10 or 15 minutes because, maybe there's a lot of good upskirts or something. I don't know. But, there's just these kind of descriptions are not pictures that come out as being healthy. I mean, I try to be a good person because I want to be a good person. I don't have sex with women who are not my wife because I don't want to hurt my wife's feelings. I love my wife. Why do I love my wife? I don't know why. It isn't because some God tells me to. I mean, I don't see why that God is the same God then who would thus let my neighbor beat his wife to death. Right? Well, there's somewhere in somewhere there's a man who's had a child with a woman. That child was a daughter. The woman, who knows, she went away and he kept that child and he raised that child in a basement. And he started having sex with her when she's about 12 or 13. And she had like 8 or 9 kids living in that basement over the span of 30 years living in that hell. What did that child do to deserve that? What did she do to any kind of benevolent God to deserve that kind of treatment? Yet it happens. And it happens surprisingly more often. I mean, that's just an example. And you can go look that up. The Franz guy over in Germany they had several children with his own daughter locked in a basement. Where's God then? Walk around a child's cancer center in a hospital and look at these children dying of bone cancer and leukemia and whatever, and ask yourself, what did these children do? I mean, if you think, well, that benevolent God needs another child in heaven, well, that's just sick. That's sick. He could just snap his fingers, bink, and they could be boom up in heaven. But no, he's going to make them sit there and lay and suffer and die and go through one of the most miserable deaths you can endure. Where's this peaceful, benevolent God? But I'll tell you, you don't find people who live in churches and how come these preachers aren't healing these kids? The only thing that seems to be able to heal these kids or give them any kind of chance is science. Modern science, stepping away from the darkness of religion and embracing science. And that heals. So that's what I got, brother.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, it's been awesome talking to you, man. Thank you for coming on my podcast. I hope you had a great time too.
I did. I like those questions.
So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.
Welcome to Parent Teacher Night. Oh, yes, Miss Garner.
If you have one of those airline credit cards, you're probably not earning double miles on every purchase.
You're right. My card only gets extra miles on some types of purchases.
With the Capital One Venture Card, you earn unlimited double miles everywhere.
Wait, but where can we use them?
You can use Capital One Venture Miles on any travel purchase.
Venture gets an A+.
Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.